Our next speaker is an engineer with experience across PHP, JavaScript, Drupal, and modern cloud tooling. After 15 years in Drupal, he's now helping shape how AI fits in the ecosystem. Please welcome Shibin Das.
Thank you for inviting me here, Oaisys. So I'm going to talk about FlowDrop. It's just another no-code, low-code platform for developing AI workflow, but not quite so. So it's much deeper. So let's have a look at like what it is about. So who am I? I'm Shibin Das. Thanks for introducing me. So I don't have much words left. So yeah, I've been passionate about like, improving the user experience of like, default Drupal that like, you get. And it's interesting, like, it's only like last week that a client posts a message about like, how beautiful it is to work with us because we care about like, what clients wants. And like one of the thing is like, caring about how we can tweak Drupal to like, fit business needs and clients need as they expected. So yeah. I work with Factorial, just like another company. Like it's a very cool place to live. I mean, work. I said live. Yeah, kind of feels like I've been living there. So the best thing about Factorial is like it allowed me the confidence to have a family. It's a very family-friendly company. I couldn't have imagined like like the support they gave me to like even though I'm working from Germany, the very reason I'm in Germany is like they wanted me to work closely with peers. And when they heard that I'm going to have a family, they have like Germany has a very good policy about like how you could have like 3 months of like paid leave and all those kind of things. But apart from that, they went ahead and like now told me like, and I can just work from home and just come to the office whenever they want, whenever like there is like maybe it happened once in a month or so. But yeah, so really thank them for sponsoring me as well. It helps a lot. Every bit helps in open source. And special thanks to my wife and daughter who like really sacrificed a lot of family time because I could concentrate on like studying what this AI is. Like because like by the time a book is like enters printing, the knowledge is already outdated. We are living in that world. So if you miss a week, you are missing a lot. It feels like so. Yeah, and unless you get your hands dirty, it's difficult to like really understand what's going on. And I know like you are here to like share your ideas and also like understand like what's going on because there is a fear among us like are we going to miss out something if you don't do these things? So yeah, so that I mean, and thanks Oasis and Freely Give to like arranging this because this is much better experience than I had in Drupal Conf, for example, where I had to cherry pick the people to talk to. That's a very different case. So now let's get back to the presentation. So this is a brief agenda I would like to have. Like we already done with the introduction. I'll discuss the problem space, which the FlowDrop is trying to solve because otherwise it is just another low code, no UI. I mean, no code, low UI pattern. Then I will introduce the FlowDrop solution, and then the step number 4, 5, 6 are like I'm going to extempore it a little bit because of the time constraints, and then I'll talk about some architecture integration. But let me ask a question: who likes demo over slides? So yeah, I'll try to spend more time on practical application. So, but the slides will be made online, so you can like go through the slides in detail later on. So no need to take any pictures or so. So let's get down to the problem space. And thanks to Marcus, he has already like took over 4 or 5 of my slides. So why does AI fail in production? And let's be honest, like yeah, we have been, I mean I've been working, or maybe I'm not good enough, but it's so hard to like run AI in production. It's really easy to create some cool demos. And some of the things which is like the Marcus discussed very well about like error computing or compounding that happens like as you increase more steps to achieve the results. Then there is a cost associated with it, and also the engineering complexity because the knowledge of actually making AI work is within a few people right now. It may change in the future, but that's the case right now. So all these 3 things come together makes like the production usage and maintenance of AI not viable. So this is expanding on the Marcus like one example. So this is just like a graph with, I'm taking this from Utkarsh Kanwat, he has been instrumental in changing the perspective of our team, because we were prompting and prompting and prompting, thinking there was something wrong with our prompt. But if you look at a mathematical model of multi-step process with 95% reliability, after 20 steps, it's gotten down to 40% reliability. So there is nothing wrong with your prompt. It is mathematically impossible to have that unless you have this feedback loop and whatever React and all those things configured. But even that has, if you are in a control theory freak and all, a feedback loop, if it is not done right, it is going to actually increase the error, decrease the reliability. So yeah, it's really hard to get it right reliably. So that's why we have this human in loop. Then we have a scaling problem, because if you need a human, then of course you can't scale it. There is a limitation on the scale. Then we have the token cost. This graph is interesting because on the bottom you see a green line. It's hardly visible, and this is what you would experience for a stateless call, which is like a single chat prompt and the AI gives back result, and the cost is negligible. You hardly notice it. But when you use a conversational interface, and which is what happens in a production usage, because you're correcting your previous output and making it more reliable and reliable, the context becomes so large that you start to see it goes into dollars. I experienced that in a single session I spent $33. That's when I just how is this possible? I mean, I didn't. I mean, then that's the reality, because as the number of turns of conversation increases, the usage doesn't double. It's a quadratic curve that it follows. And sometimes you might have noticed this, cursors and other cursor is in a platform where you can code, tries to rate limit you after a certain number of conversation, because they know that you're going to burn so much token that you will be over your usage limit, and you start a new conversation. And it is not because the cursor can't allow you to do that, but this is the reality over there. It will cost so much to continue the conversation after a certain time. Yeah. So that's it. So, and this is instrumental for a production usage, because if it works in demo, and then if somebody does this in production, you are going to be in loss, or you will lose the user because they are not interested anymore. So yeah. So yeah, this is just a summary of what I just told. And so this is the main problem space that I'm trying to work on. That the gap between works in demo and works at scale is huge. We actually, on our first project, we showed a demo, we got the project, and Factorial had to go through a loss to make it work. And after that, we learned our lessons, and we sat back and did some research and some post-mortem of the project to see this shouldn't happen. And that's where the idea of workflow-based execution came into practice at Factorial. And while we were practicing it, we have some rules that we preamble. I don't know what you call it. Some principles that we work on. We want intelligent but controls. We want transparent and auditable, because it helps a lot, not just in debugging but also answering to the client, why did something happen. Yeah. And then the low code and collaborative thing helps a tremendous engagement from the client side. Because if the client can't, so if you, for example, Marcus was showing the automator, which works awesome, but if you have noticed the configuration, yeah, there is a learning curve in figuring out which checkbox to check, what text to copy and paste where, and there is a lot of things. So 40 or 50 screens, you need to configure it correctly to have that demo working. You lose your client at the first time you open the form. So how can we promote engagement with the client? Because the client is very instrumental in the success of AI, because they decide what is good enough. Because if it is not good enough, they're not going to use it. So the engagement from client, and so after using this workflow technique and then using FlowDrop, which I will show you later, we started getting engagement from the client, and the client started giving us inputs on making it better instead of us suggesting to them. We'll come to that later. So, So what's the FlowDrop's approach to structured auditable workflows? And this is very important. So I modified the presentation to suit non-Drupal users as well. So what on left is what is universally available. That is, a FlowDrop is a visual workflow editor. So you can imagine a workflow and try to implement it graphically using this thing. It is being very much promoted by N8N, Langflow, Langwise, Flowwise, and Promptly, and a lot of things that just come and go nowadays. So yeah, so that shouldn't be a very difficult learning curve. So I'm going to ride on the wave. And it's a complete user experience platform. So the design, debugging, and all those things it covers. It also the way you will integrate with FlowDrop is through a open API specification. So you don't need to know the internals of what functions are available, what calls needs to be made. Even though AI can figure it out very nice, but there is a much better thing, an open API spec that you can develop against. And there is also already a reference implementation available in Drupal. So in Drupal, we have a more or less working solution. So you can refer to. So if you want to develop it for a different platform like WordPress, Laravel, it might be banned for saying WordPress, but yeah, that's how decoupled it is. And so FlowDrop is not a workflow processor. So there exists one for Drupal, but the main goal of FlowDrop is the user experience layer surrounding managing and creating workflow. And it also is not a standalone engine, which is another way of saying that these two are not negatives, because it caters to a certain specific use case, which is digital sovereignty. This enables you to use the modern UI for generating workflow, where your platform controls the execution, access logic, and all the other things, which is quite important nowadays. At least for Europe, it's the most important thing right now. So, yeah. So again, repeating, you get editor plus UX and spec. You build your execution engine for your platform. There exists one for Drupal. Today I was somebody demoed me, I forget his name. I think it's Hari demoed in 4 hours he came up with a totally different execution engine using Symfony Messenger based on FlowDrop workflow. So yeah, that's that's what happens when you have a proper spec which you can rely on. So you can use AI to understand the spec and develop much faster. So it's not a guesswork at that point of time. And you can write tests to verify that as well. And you keep total control on the execution, so you can have proper guardrails on how many times something can be executed, what cost should be, you can have thresholds of the cost limits, time limits, and lot more within Drupal or within your platform while executing these workflows. So you don't rely on N8N or Active Pieces or some external platform to do it for you, and because they have vested interest of charging you through some dark patterns maybe. But yeah, so your platform controls the context, access logic, and execution. And this is quite important because I tried to implement these workflows in Flowwise, Promptly, Langflow, and every time I run into the problems like, okay, this entity access check that cannot run in Flowwise or Langflow workflow. Because even if I use an MCP server, it runs as an admin user. So that's a big problem. I lose a lot of things even when I use MCP and expose everything to an external platform, because the native execution context is always missing when we execute something on a different server. So yeah, so that's the main thing. So I already gone through this. Just again repeating, how is it different than N8N? It's already discussed that. Something interesting is because BPM and IO is used in ECA, so FlowDrop seems to have some parallels with that, but actually not. I would like to discuss in detail why it is not for those who are interested in ECA. But yeah, BPM and IO is an outdated paradigm or workflow concept, and doesn't suit modern AI needs. So you can try to fit a square plug in a round hole. AI could do that, I know. That's what everybody it is doing all the day. But yeah, that's not the right pattern. And yeah, so one of the reasons why like I think I am different is because like when I was working in Pune, I was in 2006 and 7 and 8. I was working as an electronics engineer in an um, instrument manufacturing company. Young engineer, I was like, really, really interested in improving myself. And I feel like I'm back to those days with AI. Young, really young, and trying to prove that I can do something with AI, and like yeah, throw all the demos at the client, and like impress them. So what I did is like digitizing their analog set of instruments, and this is the best photo I can get with the design I made on the top. So it was an instrument. What I did is like I replaced LEDs and like all those outdated technology with the LCD display. Back then it was quite the rage, and engineers loved it because now instead of like so they could like calibrate the instrument, they could see like what's wrong with the things and all, and they loved it. But this instrument was actually majorly used by shop floor. After the engineers configure something, they gave it to the shop floor, and they had to decide like whether something so it was used to test speakers. So every speaker in an assembly line is tested before it is like packaged. So unlike other things, so if it passes, they send it to like packaging, otherwise they just scrap it. So the when I went to Noida, like to get the real feedback, I was expecting praises, but one poor little not poor little, but yeah, a poor worker just pleaded to me that can we bring back those LEDs. It's like, why? But there is this modern thing. So the thing is like the workers are not concerned about like all the other details that the engineers love. They just want to know like whether they should like accept a piece or not. So a simple green or red was enough for them to make that decision. And reading that from an LCD is tiring, and especially like if you have to look at a certain angle to get it right. So and also at 40 degrees Celsius in a floor without like an AC, you have weary eyes. I respect them a lot for doing that. So yeah, so in the next version we shipped both LED for those who want it, and LCD for engineers. And that this philosophy. I mean, this actually because I learned it like really young, like 3 years into my career. I get this hard feedback. It shaped how I think about user interfaces, even though like I'm not a front-end engineer, but I try to like empathize with like what the client is talking about and all. And that is that allowed me to like sorry for this slide, that allowed me to like have the push to learn this JavaScript frameworks and all those things to like have this modern interface. So yeah, this is a summary of like why the problem with AI, what's the problem with the AI only solutions? Like Marcus said, like, because every time I try to discuss an AI solution, most of the conversation went like, okay, let's create an agent for this. Then, okay, we have a problem. Let's create an agent for this, another agent, another agent. That was like how the conversation went, not about the workflow. And I was like, Ruko zero, Ruko, Thamba. Let's take a step back. And then because of the I mean I'm a huge fan of workflow. After that I tried a lot to do with agent, but when it comes to production, we always like face difficulties and failed, and like cost of running it was too huge. And also debugging was a pain. So LLM decisions are black box. So today like still you the moment you send something to the LLM and it comes back, it's a black box. You don't know why it did some decisions, and it's not explainable. Yeah, so what we did was like reduce that black box, replace it with like as much visibility as possible. So yeah, so like reduce LLM usage, rely on workflows, and every step is logged so that you can debug and things like that. So yeah, in FlowDrop, like visually replayable like is coming soon. So yeah, so this is the goal of FlowDrop. So this is a demo which we did in Vienna. So if you had a chance to visit Factorial, our company booth, you would be given a tablet, and it showcased. Let's get to the demo. It just showcased this form where you could choose your path. So we tried to make it look like a red pill, blue pill thing, and and this whole thing was like, because the demo is not important, like the form is not important. It's important for the company, but not for me. Um, Wipe coded it. It created this like form out of its own, and then it submits it to Drupal, because getting a multi-step form is kind of a pitta in Drupal. So I just went for like a normal JavaScript HTML thing. So it's a SDC component. The source code is available if you want to have a look into it, but it's wipe coded. So what it is asking for is like the preference of the user. Do you like AI or not? Like go traditional. And after that, it goes on to ask the username of the user, email, all those things in multiple steps. And so FlowDrop, okay, this is FlowDrop. So FlowDrop, so we created the workflow in FlowDrop and then used it with that form. So let me just spend a minute to explain different things in FlowDrop. So you have a sidebar where you can browse for different components. You can search for it. So if anybody has used Langflow, you will feel at home. Then you can drag and drop it into the canvas where you can double click and configure various parameters. And so this is what FlowDrop gives you, like a UI to define the sidebar and what's available in the sidebar, the categories. You can control the icons, the colors, the text, the description, and everything. It's a simple JSON, API endpoint. You send it, and then FlowDrop will just render it. And then you can also define the nodes that are available. We call this nodes, not to be confused with Drupal nodes. And here also you define what inputs are available, again using a JSON schema. So no Drupalism there, nothing related to Drupal to use FlowDrop. And also using JSON schema means you can also use AI assisted coding to generate plugins and all for this, because they understand JSON schema better than Drupal systems. Then the output is also following a similar schema. What I'm trying to say is that you define a few things in JSON, and magically the FlowDrop is rendering it here. And it's available for connecting from one thing to another and all. And what it does is also, after you make this graph, it converts it into a DH, a directed acyclic graph. You can interpret to run your workflow. So again, it converts everything into JSON, and the whole workflow is available as a JSON, therefore for your platform to execute. So yeah. And so how did we use this for Vienna? So this form is connected to this node, which is which accepts the input of the form. So if somebody chooses a preference, this one gets triggered. There is some glue code in the Drupal to make it happen. But once that is done, the workflow get executed. And what we have is some parallel workflows. One of them is understanding if the data submitted is sales worthy or not. Is it interesting for the sales, or is it interesting for HR, for example? So if it is interesting for sales, it will create an entry in the CRM. That's what one of the workflow does. So how does and we use LLM for doing that. And how did we do that? We sent the information, like in this workflow, you can see it's getting converted to JSON, because we need to send a string to the LLM. So this node just does that, converts the data to JSON, and we feed this JSON to the agent, which has a prompt. And this prompt basically is saying that look at the email, and if it looks like a business email, create an entry in the CRM, so that the salespeople get notified on their mobile, and they can follow up with this person who has come to the booth. So this part, if you try to hard code it using PHP, maybe you can look at a few set of emails like Gmail or something and ignore that. But doing it with LLM provides a much better reliable result than doing it with PHP. So it totally makes sense to use LLM on this node, and use prompt for this. And once it does, it goes to this if-else condition, which is not an LLM. So the only thing LLM in this path has been this one. The if-else decision is a simple does the LLM replied with save to CRM? If it does, go through the true path and call save to CRM. So here, what's different than tool calling here is in tool calling, what you would have done is you would have just have one agent, give it all the information it is in the JSON format, and it will do the if-else decision as well, and it will also call the factorial CRM with the data. So what happens is there is a chance that it can error on the if else statement, even though it has decided that say to CRM has to be used. It could error. There is a 95% chance that 5% chance that it will error on the if else. There is a again 5% chance that it will error on the actual call that is made to the CRM if it is all tool. But converting into the workflow, your 5-step process has only one LLM node, which has this error, and so your reliability of this whole chain is still 95%. So that's the difference when you use tool calling versus workflow. You increase the chance of reliability of this, and and then if you compare it with a PHP based process or conventional process, this has even better reliability on that, because the LLM node is replacing a PHP process which was buggier, which was less reliable. So this is how it enabled us to fine-tune process to be actually more reliable than less reliable, and still have all the benefits of traditional workflow and all. So similarly, we have we have this same demo. There is another flow that is happening on the same thing, which is there is this data extractor. So this is a demo of it's the same workflow, it's the same context, but since we have so much control on the data, the another LLM which I use here can have a totally different controlled data than the one which was used in the CRM. So for example, this data extractor is extracting preference. So what this means is from the output of this data will only have preference in the output, not the entire context. And this is quite important, because then this if else will reliably fire that when it is trying to check with AI. So if the user selected AI, it will reliably fire 100% of the time. If you had given this logic to LLM on the data, as a JSON, it would have fired. I mean, it would have misfired. But there is no chance that this would misfire, because this is tradition. And then after that, you can give this trigger another LLM, which was configured to create a funny comment if you choose AI. We obviously didn't show the comment to the user because we were afraid Drupal Association might sue us. So so we turned it off, but yeah, we could always show that. And what's the beauty of this is, it's not available in the Drupal integration yet, but the FlowDrop, the project does have it, is the concept of pipelines, and you can visualize the pipeline. So every form submission triggers a pipeline, and so we are at pipeline 10. So which path do you want to choose, guys? I heard traditional. So it would trigger a new pipeline. We have pipeline 11. So I will skip to the part where you can actually see a decision made, which was in this if-else node, which was comparing against whether the path was AI or not. You can see this part is pending, because that didn't get executed because we choose AI. And this will happen 100% of the time, because until because in this pathway, there is no chance of error. If the user made a preference, that will be respected. And so this is how you make things more reliable using workflow and mixing traditional with AI powered LLMs and all. Because I just mentioned this example of determining if something is salesworthy or not is not something traditional programming can solve beautifully. And so let's use AI where it matters. It will reduce your bill as well, because you're not doing a conversational interface here or running it in loop or steps, and using every LLM in every step. And also, it's very important that if you're running models locally, you might not have the response time per call that you could achieve using Gemini or something. So and if you're if you're running some Olama in your production without the GPU, then it takes half an hour to make a decision. So no, that's gone. Sorry, half an hour to make an embedding and maybe 10 minutes to make a decision. So so this is my pitch. in Drupal, like for example, so let me just go back to the Drupal part. In Drupal, like this is the interface available to define categories. So if you delete these categories, none of the categories shows up there. And if you delete the particular node type because you don't want to have any of these, so the site builder is in total control of what nodes are available in the workflow. And yeah, and also in Drupal, you can also edit the same workflow. That's it, and save it and go back. So yeah, there is a tight integration available for Drupal, which runs the pipeline, stores the pipelines and everything. So yeah, but I would like to go back to the presentation now. So again, repeating myself. So FlowDrop is the UI layer, and your platform is the execution layer. And we have one working for Drupal, and it's getting better with more different kinds of orchestrations, more better integration. But I'm welcoming people to develop integrations for your platform, like be it Laravel, Django, Node.js, or because digital sovereignty matters. You must be in control of your data, and there should be an option that you can execute AI and its workflows with total control over the data without leaving your platform if you wish to. Okay, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why even though my company and I'm not part of AI initiative, but it matters a lot, because that's what AI initiative and Symphony AI initiative is trying to do, to bring control back to our platforms so that we can execute these AI and LLM automations within our platform. And yeah, so you get this. Yeah, please, it's my call to join the journey. AI initiative or FlowDrop, doesn't matter. We are all working in the same direction to make things better, our life better, our clients' life better, and hopefully keep our job. So, yeah. So, yeah. I would now open up for questions because I just went through this.